2018 State of the City Luncheon. Thank you for being here today. I want to thank, just on behalf, this event is co-hosted by the Fuse Des Moines, the Downtown Chamber, and the Des Moines West Side Chamber. We all come together to work on this and partner together to put it on. So thanks for all the leadership from all three of those chambers for your support and for the sponsors that we're going to thank as well. On behalf of the West Side Chamber, my name's Daryl Sarmento. I'm the new director of the Des Moines West Side Chamber, and we're having a great time on the West Side, growing and seeing a lot of economic development and a lot of great camaraderie going on the West Side. So we're very proud of that. I want to thank one of our chamber members on the West Side. Her catering business, A Taste to Go, Emily, it's still on University Avenue on the West Side, but this venue here is something that her and her sister and Chris, her sister's husband, just opened up this fall, Curate, and they are one of our sponsors and hosts for today, and I just want to thank them. Chris is in the back. I'm not sure where Emily is, probably dishing up food or doing something, but let's give them a hand for this new space downtown. It is open for rent, and Taste to Go does all the catering here, and no doubt it's always going to be outstanding. But this is a great new space downtown, and appreciative of your involvement in the community. I want to thank a couple of our sponsors on the Des Moines West Side, Star Bar on Ingersoll, as well as Ameriprise Bars and Associates, and Christie's right here. Thank you for sponsoring today. Let's give them a hand. And with that, I'm going to bring up one of my partners in crime, Jennifer Chittenden, with the Downtown Chamber. Let's thank her.
Finally, a podium I can see over. I like this. This is our 5th year offering the annual State of the City presentation and luncheon. And it's really significant because 5 years ago, we came together as 3 separate chambers of commerce that all represent the city of Des Moines to put this on for our cumulative members. It is a significant event that shows the collaboration that exists, and that also highlights the value of having 3 chambers in your city, each who are uniquely able to capably serve the unique business districts in their area. I would also like to give Daryl Sarmento a warm applause as well because he coordinated today. Each year, please go ahead and give him an applause. We take turns hosting and doing the coordination, and this year it was Daryl's turn, and I think he did a fine job, if you ask me. I would also like to take time to acknowledge and thank the sponsors from the Downtown Chamber who are helping to make today possible for everybody. We have with us today the University of Iowa, and they have a table in the back with some additional information. I do encourage you to check out this flyer in particular that talks about their new master's and certificate program in business analytics. It is a fast-growing program and something you need to know about. They also mentioned, too, that the Iowa Center is open for business. So if you're interested in learning more, please contact the University of Iowa, and they're here today with us. I would also like to thank U.S. Bank for being one of our sponsors. U.S. Bank, one of the members here with U.S. Bank, he actually chairs the Downtown Chamber's Advocacy Committee. His name's Matt Jacobson, and we are so proud to have an advocacy committee to serve our chamber membership. And just a quick, unique story about U.S. Bank.
Matt Anderson, Economic Development Director Aaron Olson Douglas, and a variety of other staff here throughout the departments within the city that help make all of the things happen that you'll hear about from the last year and also forecasted for the next year. So please stand if you are involved with the City of Des Moines. Thank you. I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of you personally in our partnership with the Friends of Southwest 9th, implementing a facade improvement program to help enhance that corridor as a gateway into downtown. So I can't thank you all enough. Without further ado, I think I will bring forward our Mayor, Frank County, who will start off our program.
Okay. Well, it's great to see all of our chamber people down here, and having been part of this for the last number of years, and talk about the future of our city, talk about what we're doing, and quite frankly, what the state of our city is, and where we're going. And I want everybody in the room to understand that we do have a balanced budget. We do have a great fund balance. We do have a plan to move forward. And for those that were participating in our local option sales tax, that wasn't part of our budget. We had some plans that we would have changed it a little bit, but we budgeted everything from day one, not anticipating the passage of that, because we didn't think that was fair to our citizens or fair to the council as we looked at what we're doing and then have to come back at the last second and make a lot of huge changes as a result if we had budgeted that in and it hadn't passed. So given the outcome, I'm glad Scott and staff that we stayed on that path and we did what we needed to do. And I think we saw that the citizens of the city of Des Moines were strongly in favor, but unfortunately we had to vote with 9 other communities, and 7 of which did not pass it. So it was always interesting when we watch citizens and how they view their local governments and what the opportunities are. And I will tell you all that we are proud of this city. We are proud of our neighborhoods. We're proud of our businesses. And quite frankly, at the end of the day or the start of the day, it's all of us working together that make Des Moines such a great place to be, to live, to raise a family, to have a business, for young professionals to have a career. Now, should we try to move this forward? Shekinah, do you want to come up and give me a hand here? I'll try and see if this works. Ah, it's working. Forget it. Go away. She's always there, just in case this goes back. Don't go very far, Shekinah, just in case. We're moving back into City Hall, and piece by piece, department by department, this has been a very interesting renovation. You know, a building over 100 years old that is really a great place for the city and the home for the city, and the council made a decision to redo it as opposed to moving into a brand new building and stay on the riverfront and be the host for city government, hopefully for many generations to come. There were a lot of things to overcome. There was a fire sprinkler system. There was fire alarm systems. You know, the whole building before didn't have all of the modern conveniences and was not built to the same spec in 1905 that they're built to today. And so we had to restore an awful lot of things, including the historic lighting, the entrances for the customers. There always is a discussion about how people in the 21st century, and the city has to meet ADA regulations. And the original entrance to City Hall was on the riverside. So, I mean, that's the formal entrance. And so that continues to be that, and it also is ADA compliant. The steps going up on the side of the building, this is actually in the lower left here is the riverside. The other side of the building, you have to take a few steps up to get into the building. And so because of the construction of it, it's really hard to figure out how in the world one would ever make that side ADA compliant. But we have redone the west side of the building and created a great garden effect out there that is really a great entryway for all citizens, and regardless of what their abilities or disabilities may be. So we wanted to do that. We re-roofed, we replaced landscaping, we replaced a boiler and updated HVAC. That was one of the main things we started out to do. And of course, when you get into the walls of a 100-plus-year-old building, you discover that there are some things in there that need some additional work. And so we undertook an awful lot of that as well. I will change the slides. Hopefully this will work again. There we go. As we suggested, Des Moines has been recognized through the work of all of us together, the chambers and the city and the neighbors, and we've received great rankings in a number of venues and publications. Here's some of those. Best affordable place to live in the United States, best place to live for millennials, top 5 best place for businesses and careers, #1 minor league sports market, top 10 best cities of quality of life, where jobs will be in 2018. That's Forbes saying that. We are proud of who we are. We are planning our work. We've got new zoning codes. We've got a Live Des Moines plan. We've got a Move Des Moines plan, a Connect Des Moines. This is all about our city council and our staff rethinking what the future of Des Moines does and is. And again, it's your input in not only in viewing this in venues like this today and getting your feedback, maybe even after the meeting, but it's input from our citizens and our businesses that talks about what makes a great place, what makes an attractive place for you to bring in employees as business owners and leaders, and that makes Des Moines a great place to live and a great place to grow a family and a great place to have a business. And I think with this, I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, Scott Sanders, and let him kind of go through the real nuts and bolts of what's going on here. Scott?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for attending over this lunch hour. As you might imagine, it's a little difficult to kind of sum up everything that goes on around the city in such a short span over a lunch. So I would invite you to visit our website to see some of the more detail, and I promise you I won't spend too much time on the city's budget aspects of this, even though that may be the heart and soul that I seem to spend a lot of my time on. So I'm going to start right where the mayor left off with the different planning activities that are ongoing yet at the city. Many of you are familiar that we have finished our land use plan, our comprehensive plan at the city, and so we have moved on to the new zoning code. We're looking at the next several months finishing that up, actually making some of those documents public in what I would call near final versions here real soon. Those are intended to make things operationally more smooth in operation and more intuitive as well. That way they can be more predictive for the developers in our community. We have the Live DSM planning. That is with our Park and Rec department. We're doing a redo, if you will, on their plan. It's been in a couple decades since we've updated that. But we are taking a new approach to our planning when it comes to parks and recreation as well, recognizing that we're not the same Des Moines from 20 years ago. We are definitely a more diverse community. As such, we've invited consultants to come in and help us with the process of planning for recreational activities that are relevant to our citizens that are coming from other countries and other parts of the U.S. even. Because we are finding out very quickly the desires for park and recreational needs from our community are very differing from one community within Des Moines to the next. So we recognize that and continue to have quite a bit of public interaction on that. In fact, over 2,000 inputs, whether that be in person or online, on just the parks planning piece of this. Move DSM is a planning effort that we have within our engineering department in Public Works, dealing with our street and transportation grids. And so this involves not only our street grids and how to project those forward over the next couple decades, but also looking at pedestrian and bicycle needs as well. And so this is meant to be fully comprehensive. Also looking at some of the major avenues in and out of Des Moines as to whether those are best being utilized, if new ones are necessary, or quite frankly, if there's an opportunity to shrink up some of our street grids. What you may be familiar with is a road diet type of scenario. So you will hear more about that through our Move DSM. As you might imagine, that is also very public oriented, getting an awful lot of input from neighborhood associations and also developers on our road systems as well. And then we also have our Connect Downtown. So again, I think many of you may be familiar with this, an effort in downtown to get more pedestrian and again, bicycle usage, more interaction in a walkable format, a lot of road diets in the sense of going from several lanes on a roadway to just a couple, allowing for more on-street parking as well, so that interaction on the first level of a lot of our downtown can be more of a retail orientation, hoping that more of the office and commercial is above that. So that is an effort that's going on as well. And I'll see if I can be successful here. Very good. Not to lose focus of our neighborhoods and the neighborhood planning that goes on, very near and dear to our council as well. A lot of planning with revitalization. We have a consultant engaged about halfway through with that effort, looking at kind of a redo at a high level of where city resources and even private resources would be best utilized, and actually getting a return on investment when it comes to truly revitalizing neighborhoods. So you will hear in the very near future here in the next several months, discussion at the city and at other levels of the importance to know when are we trying to revitalize certain neighborhoods and where in reality we're trying to stabilize neighborhoods. So there may be a good mix of services that we deliver, whether it be public safety, again, parks and rec, maybe even some additional infrastructure with streets. And then there may be actual economic development activity more heavy in areas where the private industry is willing to come in and really kind of juice things up and get a return on investment that makes the most sense. So we're going to be more strategic in nature. That's why we've engaged these consultants. But yet again, we don't do this alone. This takes teamwork from yourself and other communities within Des Moines to get this right. And so there'll be very candid conversations over the next several months about how best to utilize the limited resources we have. And I would state that, thank you, Mayor, for bringing up the discussion on sales tax. This is the area that we had hoped to have a lot of investment in the sales tax to the tune of $7 to $8 million annually. So it's very unfortunate that in our long-term planning, we have to readjust. So you'll see in my additional slides that when I do talk about the budget, we absolutely have a balanced budget. That will remain the case. We have strong, solid reserves. We are on a good foundation. However, long term, it's no secret. We have infrastructure needs, we have other capital needs, and we have neighborhood reinvestment needs so that we can get to this point where we can truly say all of Des Moines is thriving. And that truly is the goal here. We need our neighborhoods to thrive before we can claim success. And so we have other activities in the neighborhood planning area that we are making improvements on. Typically it's removal of blight, but also rental inspections, where we are setting up systems that benefit those that are acting well, so our landlords that are doing a good job keeping their property up and doing things the right way have a longer rental certificate. Whereas those that are not doing so well and maybe struggle with keeping their properties up, we're back in those properties more frequently. So we're making sure that it's an incentive program to do things the right way. So we're making those shifts as well within our neighborhoods. I mentioned a little bit about infrastructure, streets, but we also have sanitary and stormwater improvements in very large numbers. Our flood mitigation alone is well in excess of $100 million of investment. We are fortunate in this instance, when it comes to flood mitigation, we've been able to partner with the state very well. They have helped us out with some of the funding. We need our federal partners to step up and partner as well. That would be the Corps of Engineers, and making sure we get the appropriate approvals. There are some starts and stops that have occurred when it comes to flood mitigation. So we continue to push on those buttons, if you will, to get the clearances so that our flood mitigation work can continue. We have the funding that's necessary, and we just need to make those improvements with the approvals from the Corps of Engineers. Similarly, our sanitary sewer has quite a bit of improvements that are going on. You may be familiar with our WRA, that's the sewer plant. They are making considerable improvements out at the plant as well, for which we are about half that participation as the city of Des Moines. Some of the actual street projects, it should be no surprise that Fleur Drive kind of rises to the top of that. Those you're going to see an awful lot on Fleur Drive in the respect to repairs over the next several years. So that obviously is a high priority. We have been able to get a new plan for where Hubble and East Euclid come together in that East 33rd and East 38th area. That will be a brand new intersection, if you will, with additional side street accesses. That's all about safety. Obviously, we've had issues with traffic accidents and whatnot, so we need to get that cleaned up. So that'll be the next 2 years that will be under construction as well. McKinley Avenue is another project from Southeast 5th to Southeast 14th, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. We spend between $30 and $35 million a year on streets. That will relate to the biggest piece of our capital infrastructure plan. That is also the reason why you will hear me talk about we are leveraging future dollars in the borrowing for these projects as well. That was another intent of the sales tax, to take that burden off of the future property tax increases that would be necessary because of these very projects. So unfortunately, we do need to reevaluate our long-term plan on especially infrastructure at the city to give you some insight. So there's a little bit of flux yet. The council approved the balanced budget a couple weeks ago, but they told us to kind of go back to the drawing board on the long-term plan and how would that then come back and impact the first year, if you will, next year's plan. So a little bit of flux. You will hear about some adjustments over the next couple months on the city's budget, probably mostly on the infrastructure side, but there may be some service level issues as well that need to be addressed, quite frankly. We have downtown bridges is more of our infrastructure needs. Again, this was an opportunity to partner. We were able to get some federal funding, excuse me, about $8 million to help us with our downtown bridges. Grand Avenue Bridge has been reopened, but we're working our way south from there with the other bridges. Essentially, every bridge needs to be touched in some fashion, with Locust being the next, and Court. Court Avenue, just for some information, will be over the next 3 years. Court Avenue will be partially closed here pretty soon, April through December. That one is some rehabilitation. That one is not a tear down. However, the Locust Street is a complete replacement. And that one is later in the fall that one would be closed for some time. So as you come visit us at our new City Hall, you'll have the luxury of hearing all the construction out on the Locust Street Bridge. Come visit me. My office is right out front of the bridge construction. I do not provide earplugs, so you'll need to bring your own earplugs for that purpose. Okay, so those are bridges. Obviously, we're a city of rivers, and we have lots of bridges. I do want to give you a video, kind of a break here. I think. The pink screen. green. Should have been green for St. Patty's Day, right? And if not, I can sure wing when it comes to budgets. The purpose of this is to show you that when it comes to property taxes and budgets, again, about teamwork. There we go. It's not just the city of Des Moines. You have your school district and the county that are also able to tax. When it comes to property taxes, the city is about 36% of that. And not surprisingly, one of our talking points is that not everyone pays property taxes in the city of Des Moines as well. Here's an example of a $100,000 home and where that money gets broken down. Continue to grow as a community, so it's not just about maintaining what we have. We are actually growing, so there's additional street work, additional services that need to be provided to our new neighborhoods as well. Many of you have heard me talk about the need that our revenues would grow at about 3 to 3.25%. That is still our goal, but as we continue to grow, that number may need to be higher as well. Typically, our revenues are growing more in the 2% range, so that's one of our main challenges when it comes to our budgets. So again, this is an example of kind of some quick video opportunities to educate our public. It's available on our website. Okay, and so here are some actual numbers. We have a reserve fund, I said was very strong, and we've seen growth in our reserve fund 6 out of the last 7 years. And we've gotten to a point where we're about 16 to 17% of our annual spend. And that's very helpful because that means we can obviously weather any storms, literally, that might come by, and we might need to have some emergency expenses. It's always important to have that rainy day fund. We are very strong in that respect. We maintain very high credit ratings for our bond issuances because we have strong reserves and balanced budgets year after year. Now here's a kind of a tale of two stories. You see this next number here at 7.4% growth in taxable valuation. That seems pretty rosy. That seems like everything should be fine and dandy. Well, that's an anomaly. It's a great anomaly. I'd love for this to happen frequently, but the fact of the matter is our 10-year average, especially when you look at infrastructure costs that might be over 20 years or longer, that's kind of more the important number. And we've had years where we've had negative growth, where things have occurred with revaluation, where we've actually lost 2 or 3% of valuation. So our 10-year average is at about 2.5. I talk about this 3.25 to 3.5% target. We actually had, in this budget cycle, when you added up all our general fund revenues, a decrease. Again, that's attributable to two things. We actually had, even with the growth, the 7.4% in valuation, we've had a few revenues taken away from us at the state level, and then we've also had a recalibration of growth. Wouldn't you know that as we have grown, and I'm going to jump ahead here, this is kind of another example that you saw in the video of the average household. We've had some good years and bad years. Here shows some of the negatives. That 3.5% flat line is the target at green. The 2.5 is what we've actually experienced over the last 10 years. And then you look at annually what those changes, they are all over the map. And so obviously, you as citizens and business owners in Des Moines, you don't want us scheduling our budgets on those wide swings of pluses and negatives. That's a matter of adding services and then taking them right back the next year and then adding them. That's not the way we work. We look at the 10-year average, we look at our fund reserves. Sometimes we're able to save up for certain projects and services and then actually spend it the next year. So if we were able to maintain the 7%, things would be fine and dandy. There's no indication that that's going to be the case. What we're trying to get is our 10-year average closer to that 3.5. That signifies success at the city. financially. Probably enough for the finances. Again, I would say that the sales tax is a recalibration, if you will, that we need to make long term. And again, that will have impacts on next year's budget as we look at, okay, what are the service levels and the infrastructure investments need to be more long term. So probably why you're here today is to hear about more of the good news. And the good news is we still have revenue generation occurring. We still have new growth occurring. The vitality is very strong. The mayor brought this up. It's the teamwork that we have with our other community partners that makes that happen. And so what we have is vitality, no doubt about it. What we need to be able to do is move that vitality into the neighborhoods, and we also need to be able to find a way to harness that vitality into revenues that make our budgets and our service levels and our infrastructure investments viable and sustainable over time. So that's the next goal, if you will, that we've got our finance people working on very diligently and every department. So again, you're here to hear about the good news. The good news is there's a lot of these activities that are going on. We have a great team, not only in finance and in our other departments, but economic development. They are our marketing group, right? We have some star performers in that area. So I'm going to bring up Erin Olson Douglas. She is the leader of our economic development efforts. There's no coincidence that we have had some very strong years the last 2 or 3 years. Erin, how long have you been? About 2 or 3 years? 2 years in charge? I don't want to
Let's see, yeah, looks like about 3.
3, okay. And so I do want to thank economic development staff because they are the lifeblood of producing a taxable base for us to utilize in our budgets that do make us stable. So Erin Olson Douglas.
Thank you. I agree, Jennifer. This is a nice height. Thank you. I feel fortunate to have the privilege of presenting this to you today, but I also feel pretty confident in saying that many of you in this room have had a hand in one or more of the projects that we'll go through today. So whether it was on the financing side, business ownership side, corporations, development, designing, reviewing. I know I saw a couple people from our boards and commissions here. Thank you for that activity that you have, an effort that you have put forward, the confidence and the investment in our community. Urban development truly takes a team, and we are fortunate that we have these partnerships that make these projects possible. So to start, we had just under $500 million in permit activity last year, which was the 3rd highest on record for the city of Des Moines. And I think what I'd like to say, projecting forward, is that we're kind of reaching this new norm. I think we saw some spikes in 2015, 2016 that you can really point to very particular building projects. We had Principal Corporation making their investments in their campuses to the tune of about $200 million. We had Come and Go's project at about $150 million. So if you take some of those big projects out there, 2017 we didn't have any of those abnormally large projects come through. Instead, we had a really healthy portfolio of $20, $30 million, lots of $5, $6 million sorts of projects come through. So I'll try to make one sole prediction, and that is that we're coming to rest at a sort of new norm that is right around that $500 million mark of activity. That represented about 16,000 total building permits, which that number has been relatively stable. Let's see. In that we had about just under 1,500 new multifamily units and over 208 single family units, townhomes. That's unique for this city. That's a lot of single family type of activity in Des Moines. We're in the absorption period on the downtown apartments. I heard Chris Sidoris, I don't know if she's in the audience here today. She's waving at me from the back row. You don't sit in the back row, Chris. You're not a back row kind of person. talking very confidently a few weeks ago at a board meeting I was in about the absorption of these units, and that there's a high level of confidence among many in the development community that we were really fulfilling a pent-up demand, and that we're trying to get to about a 5% vacancy rate, which represents a healthy vacancy rate for people to be able to make choices in their housing environments in downtown, not have to jump on the first unit that they see or commit to something sight unseen. So I think we're getting to that point of about between 1,000, 1,200 units that were built in downtown of this 14. We've absorbed about 40% of those so far, was the most recent reporting on it I had heard. So, and we're heading into the period of time where absorption typically happens, spring, summer, fall months. I mentioned the single family activity was a little bit unique. This is coming in areas throughout the city. So the stars on the map represent areas where we have had new platting, subdivision type of activity around the city, and it really represents pretty good geographic distribution. And this is the point in the presentation where I'm really gonna pick up the pace, just to make sure we get out of here on time. If there's something that you wanna ask about on a particular project, just raise your hand and I'll try to leave a few minutes at the end for questions. The hotel market, we've had a lot of questions about hotels and a lot of interest in hotels. That was after about a 23-year hiatus in any new hotel activity in downtown. So we, again, had some sort of pent-up demand in our hotel market. We have about 1,500 rooms proposed and under construction, and they range in geography. We have them in downtown, we have them out near the airport, we have a concept for a hotel in the Drake neighborhood. So we really feel like it's like the housing market, really offering some new diversity and new options in the downtown market. We haven't seen a lot of movement in occupancy rates and room rates as we've worked with the CVB. So we think that there is room in this market for these new and interesting types of hotels. We're seeing a fair amount of interest in office. So as we have seen a number of the older Class C office buildings convert to apartments and other types of uses, that has brought the vacancy rate down and has led to new spec office types of proposals in downtown. Not big, not by most city standards, but a pretty healthy scale of new office projects. The lower vacancy rates really make that possible. And then we've also seen quite a bit of interest in industrial projects, both growth from within as well as interest in our market from outside of the region. So first we'll go through some of the recent successes. Did anybody see Buzz Brenton make the first lap across the Y pool? That was pretty cool. These represent a couple of long-held aspirations. So as I mentioned, the YMCA just opened the pool, the Olympic scale swimming pool, a couple of weeks ago, and tomorrow is the ribbon cutting for the convention hotel. These are both projects that have been a long time in the making. I know when I started at the city, it was one of the projects on my desk 12 years ago, I think it was, for the convention hotel, and had the opportunity to help find a viable location for the new downtown YMCA, landing in its home in the former convention complex. These are projects that really took a vast amount of community effort that really ran the spectrum from city to county to private investment, to a pretty active philanthropic and business community sort of effort. So DMRC, Des Moines Redevelopment Corporation, was pivotal in the formation of both of these projects and bringing them to life through their real estate holding and activity at participation. Fourth and Court, Wilkins Building, both sites that sat dormant for a long time in downtown. Yonkers Building closed probably 15 years ago as a department store, and there was the fire 6 years ago, nodding. So it was really a long time in the making. That opened last year. With 60 units, half of them being affordable. Fourth and Court was a site that the city had acquired and went through a number of RFP processes over the years and finally landed on one for a full-service grocery store in downtown. Kind of a milestone that a number of cities across the country aim for in growing their downtown vitality and their housing market. Principal Financial Corporation, I mentioned a little bit ago, opened their corporate headquarters building over the summer, kind of the final piece to what they called their campus blueprint, which was a $200 million reinvestment in their campus without ever building a building. So it really represented renewed commitment in downtown, I would say, as well as a commitment to really growing their workforce in the city. Workforce attraction has really become one of the key conversation, I think, for the city. How we bring in new talent, how we make our city attractive, and bring the contingent of new workers that will be needed to continue our regional growth. EMC also invested and opened a new building on their kind of block campus. It was about a $22 million reinvestment, and in office and support services. Again, really an employee attraction and retention play to make their office space more competitive and a place that would draw workers. A couple of new interesting housing projects in downtown. Eagle View, which is immediately south of here, about a $20 million project that starts to really open up a new area of downtown. It kind of represents a southern expansion, let's say, of downtown living. Offers 120 mixed income units and an adjoining community gardens, which the city reestablished in that area. 219 East Grand, just north and east of here, west of here, I guess it would be, about 100 market rate units over a kind of signature retailer in West Elm. Opened up the idea that perhaps some of these larger market or larger national retailers may have interest in the city. We're slowly opening up and taking the Band-Aid off and have the area around City Hall, including Grand Avenue Bridge and the East 2nd parking ramp open. Both successes of last year. The 533 I think it is, stall parking garage is open for public use. City is utilizing it for our parking. Previously was our parking lot. We're parked on the top floor, and the rest of it is open for public use. We will see, and I'll show it in a minute, development activity starting to happen on the north side of this site as part of a phased redevelopment plan for this area, for that block in particular. The bridge opened late last year, and if anybody has driven across, walked across, I really think that those railings really open up the experience of the river. It's a nice design that deals with a number of constraints in bridge construction, and we should start to see the arched panels go on here about any day. I'm looking for an engineer in our crowd to nod their heads, but there are some nice panels that go on this bridge that sort of reference the arched configuration that we've historically had on our downtown bridges. Park downtown. You don't know how frustrating it is to deal with so many parking issues, concerns, complaints, frustrations, and yet know that there is enough parking out there. We just have to deal with it more efficiently. So we have recently been working on updating our policies that are probably 20 years old, and we're really focused on how to get people in and out of downtown quickly and how to provide parking for a downtown workforce. Over time, we have really become a much more diverse downtown, but our parking policies didn't reflect that. And so we have been working on how to do that, including charging for parking in garages on Saturdays, later into the evenings, in order to produce the turnover to help support area businesses, restaurants, retail. So if you have a longer term parking need, we really want to encourage people to park in the parking structures so that it frees up the parking meters for turnover for shorter term parking needs. If you have any questions about this and how we're rolling it out and when the parking meters near you that you're using on a daily basis will change, check out our website. Downtown office development. So these are the things that we're looking at right now passing through our office. What you see on this slide are a couple of projects that are sort of emblematic of others that have made commitment in downtown recently. Federal Home Loan Bank moving into the former Voya building represents sort of a musical chairs, let's say, of office users in downtown. We had 4 expansions, moves in downtown last year. Federal Home Loan Bank was probably the most high profile because they purchased a building and are putting about $20 to $25 million into it. But Voya, Cognizant, Global Atlantic also were part of that musical chairs. Unfortunately, nobody pulled a chair out. Everybody stayed. We're very happy with that recommitment to downtown. And while it's exciting to see new buildings, new construction, these are really important for downtown's real estate to move into existing office space, to reinvest in buildings, to reinvest in the downtown area. It really expresses a confidence and fills that vacant office space. And allows for projects like the Mies Block Commercial, Nelson's proposal for 7th and Grand to offer new office space and bring new office space to the market. We're really seeing some out-of-state interest in some of our market space as well, which I think is an interesting evolution in at least my time at the city, to have some of that out-of-state interest. I think that employers are really finding that quality of life that we've invested in downtown over the last 20 years or so to really be a key piece in their decision making now. New hotels, here's a couple of the ones that we expect to see moving forward this year. The Aperium Group and Out of Market Group is coming in to rehabilitate the former Midland building into 140 upscale boutique hotel rooms. They're really aiming at the top of the market. This is a building that has kind of quietly sat here, attracting about a valuation of under $500,000 over the last 15 years. So to see that sort of reinvestment in our existing real estate is really important to the vitality of the city at large. Similarly with the Hotel Fort Des Moines, they have moved forward with some historic tax credits, and we believe, fingers crossed, that they should be able to start on converting this to new and updated hotel rooms. It's about 275 in this building that's been shuttered for a few years now. We do continue to see investment in downtown multifamily. Again, it's been really interesting to see that evolution where people, and I think it's really healthy for our market to see people really investing in new and interesting types of amenities that really up the ante for living in downtown. So it's good for all of us who live here. It's good for people who come in from out of market as well. Flux Apartments on Walnut is about 90 new apartments in an interesting and kind of emerging part of downtown. Similarly, the Nexus represents new construction in that Grays Station area, and then Carbon 550, a remnant parcel next to the YMCA, which was one of the keys to moving that, to pushing the pool over the finish line. It was a parcel that we really encouraged as the pool developed to, if you're not going to take it all, then save enough that somebody could really do something with it. And there were sort of a lot of eye rolls of, yeah, right. But it really came to pass, and it was key to pushing the pool over the finish line, as well as providing housing in a nice location convenient to the Y. Riverfront YMCA site. I wish that was actually a video. Pretty dramatic. We have been working with Hubble on how this project evolves. Frankly, it's been difficult. It's been a challenge to find a good fit for this site. They are working against a late May deadline on it. We can extend that by mutual agreement if we so choose. It has been a challenge, and hopefully we'll have some news on that one by the time we all get together next year. Blackbird Tower everybody's heard about the land swap idea, right? So this one's pretty interesting. It takes a look at transforming the Kaleidoscope site now into a home for the Blackbird Tower that they have been proposing over the last couple of years. Meanwhile, EMC would take ownership of the vacant site next to the Wilkins building and look at their future real estate options on that site for expanding their properties. Again, news to come, we hope. The fifth, these guys are really making some good progress. Last night, council extended some deadlines for them in order to better understand the agreements as they're coming together, as well as give them a little bit of time to understand how to either bring the 3 phases out of the project, potentially as a single project or 2 separate projects on this site. It didn't represent any sort of stalling on it. I would say it actually represents some good progress that is being made in figuring out how to develop this site. Polk County Courthouse is again in the midst of a phased implementation of county courts that really brings some good dignity to our county courts operations in downtown. They're working on the former jail site right now, which no one, I think, would recognize as the former jail, and will begin working on the historic courthouse later this year. It's utilizing funding from the 2013 bond referendum, so it's been 5 years plus in the making. Federal Courthouse, they have a great design team selected, so I feel very confident that we will get a building of this caliber somewhere in downtown. Gray's Station passed the Gray's Landing area passed about the $100 million investment threshold last year, with a number of investments in Cityville, the hotel down in that area, and Gray's Station Hubble is bringing forward 200 units of apartments in the link right at ML King and 11th Street, as well as the first phase of townhome units, including single-family homes. So there's about 80 units in that first phase that they'll be bringing out of the ground this year. Part of that proposal is moving forward on the pedestrian bridge that will connect development in this area across the Raccoon River to Grays Lake Park. We continue to see development and interest in the East Village. So 111 East Grand is that north side development adjacent to the city's parking ramp. 418 East Grand is a proposal for surface parking, for our surface parking lot at the corner of 4th and East Grand by Nelson. It includes a mixed-use project at the corner of East 4th and East Grand, as well as a pretty clever parking structure that would replace the public parking, as well as provide parking for this block on the north side of the block. Meanwhile, Tim Ripma and his group has purchased the American Marking Building and is working on transforming that site on this block. So a real big change for this block in the East Village. The Bridge District is moving forward with apartment buildings, additional phases of the row homes. Market District, we have an infrastructure reinvestment plan underway. Meanwhile, we should see 3 projects coming out of the ground later this year: District 6th, Rowett Lofts, and Conley Lofts, which represent about 300 or plus or minus new apartment buildings in this area. Ingersoll development has also proven to be an interesting corridor for us recently. Sol Apartments, the Roars Investment Group, has brought new scale of investment to Ingersoll, and I know a number of you in the room were probably instrumental in helping to advance that project in this key location. Two Rivers Bank is coming out of the ground. 4,000 Ingersoll is underway. And then we have Drake area redevelopment. So Nelson Development has sites adjacent to Drake University under agreement to bring hotel and multifamily, transforming some previously untaxed property at Drake University into private development. That's a big shift and a big transformation in this area, not only for the uses, but for the taxable value in this area. And the vitality, frankly, bringing some new activity to a new section of the city. NDC has been active and a key participant in this as well, with some new housing in this area and a proposal for a new Boys and Girls Club also on Forest Avenue. Riverbend Neighborhood, a project on, again, city-owned property that has sat underutilized for a number of years. It's a proposal for Children and Family Urban Ministries, as well as potentially a new Grub YMCA in this area. The Birdland neighborhood, very interesting story here about the tale of 2 different strategies in flood recovery. This one put levee improvements in place and then land back into active uses, with Habitat for Humanity building a number of nice scaled homes in this area after the levee improvements had been made. We've been seeing activity at Southridge Lofts. So TWG, a developer who started in downtown and has moved out to the neighborhoods, is proposing just under 300 units of housing in this area. Another out-of-market developer has just recently opened senior housing on a parcel that Southridge Mall opened up for redevelopment. And retail in this area, there's been the recent announcement for Ross, Dress for Less, but still struggling with Sears, Toys R Us in that area. So the developer continues to make some nice reinvestment in this area and find strategies for continuing to breathe new life in, again, also a new health clinic in this area. This is a smattering of a number of existing businesses that have grown, expand, opened operations in and around the city. Very key participants. It's great to have Atlantic Bottling back, and as well as seeing a number of these expansions in good diversity of markets, as well as good job opportunities. And also good geography distribution around the city. Streetscape projects, we continue to advance. 6th Avenue should be under construction later this year. Roosevelt Streetscape is all but finished. And this is where I move into parks, so I really have to refer to my notes a little bit more on this. Great Parks Department looking for new and different partnerships in order to continue to evolve these opportunities in and around the city. Riverview Island, the second all-inclusive playground in the city, in collaboration with the Variety Club, It represents about a 15,000 square foot playground in this area, as well as the amphitheater that is proposed. A new key trail expansion and connection, filling in a 2.5-mile gap in the system near Easter Lake, and then continuing with the partnerships that have made Evelyn K. Davis Park more active and positive environment for a number of partners who have participated in that, teaming with the city's police program and Parks and Recs department. This is it. This is the end. I've spoken really quickly. Do you want me to press go, Shekinah? Is it going? Did I do it? I'm gonna, yeah, we'll turn it over to her.
As you can see, there's an awful lot going on, and it's an exciting place to be and a great place to again have a family, have a business, work together, and it's all of us working together to continue with this momentum and keep everything moving forward. One of the things that we have talked about is how do you get in, and what does it mean to be in, and part of it is connecting, and let you know that our local government, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Nextdoor, we're on the phone, 283-4500, the email, website, and you can even go on and find all of your council members on there. Start with your ward council members, and then end up with your at-large, and call the mayor last, and especially with complaints. If you have a whole lot of things that you're excited about, call me first. I'm always excited to hear about everybody's positive thoughts. You know, we look at Des Moines, the future, and you know, we're making great strides in working with the school district and trying to connect schools and kids on safe pathways to and from school to walk, and good ways to get there. We want to be age-friendly and friendly to all citizens, regardless of abilities or disabilities or age, and make sure that we're doing that. And we're recognized, as was noted up here, as one of those 5 best places for people of mature age to age and look forward to the future. And let's keep working together to make Des Moines better, make it greater, and we're looking to all of you to be partners in that process. So thank you very much, and I think that'll be it, unless, because I think we're getting towards the end. But thank you all, appreciate it.